And as I sat there, sipping my locally sourced coconut milk matcha almond latte, I wondered, is our liberal mecca of Portland media actually locally sourced? And as I dove deeper and deeper into the rabbit holes of media conglomerates, the answer was clearly no. There are some companies, like OPB for instance, that run through the public broadcasting service and are funded by the public. Most other services are funded by larger corporations. And this can be a problem when, for example, Xfinity, in the COVID day and age, you have to have internet to participate in society. For example, for me going to school, I have to have internet. And Xfinity is the only provider that I can go through where I live. And they're owned by GE, which is the biggest media conglomerate. When looking into radio stations, I found that iHeartRadio owns some of the most popular ones, especially the hit stations. And they were formerly Clear Channel Communications Incorporated. And they own 858 radio stations across the U.S. So they're the number one radio provider, and the second runner-up only owns 429, so about half. And in Minot, North Dakota, they own 100% of the radio stations there, which is crazy. They also own broadcast towers, and they also have some very odd investments in bike rentals in Spain, Norway, France, and Italy. But it's less than 10,000 bikes in all four of those countries. So it raises the question, why? As far as news and broadcast TV goes, KGW in Oregon is Channel 8. Stands for Keep Growing Wiser, which I never knew. I thought that was interesting. But they are owned by Tenga, who owns 64 TV stations and 2 radio stations all across the U.S. It is a publicly traded broadcast, digital media, and marketing services company. They do marketing for other big companies like Columbia Sportswear, notably. Tegna Media is being looked at and acquired potentially by Apollo Global Management, and they own ADT, Redbox, Qdoba, Great Wolf Resorts, Jacuzzi, Cox Media Group, Shutterfly, and lots of others. So lots of horizontal acquisition going on there. The Oregonian paper in Portland is owned by the Oregonian Media Group, and that media group is then owned by Advanced Publications, which is one of the largest media companies in the U.S. Their parent company, Advanced Local, reaches more than 50 million people throughout the U.S. each month. They own Condé Nast, which is responsible for the New Yorker, Vanity Fair, Vogue, etc. American City Business Journals. They own Reddit. They own Ironman, the World Triathlon Corporation, and they are still branded as a family-owned company. They were founded by Samuel Irving Newhouse Sr. in 1922, and the Newhouse Company still owns. Currently, Advanced Publications is spending $10 billion acquiring global businesses, including esports, musical theater, satellite launches. This is all according to the Wall Street Journal. And this means that they're ramping up to expand their business beyond traditional media holdings, so they have less reliance on ad revenue for their media corporation, expanding more into the digital sector. And I think this is really interesting, especially considering what's going on with the GameStop stocks and Reddit this week, that this media corporation is also responsible for Reddit. So definitely interesting ties there. But I think generally the main takeaway from all of this is you can follow the money pretty much anywhere. And that's where the power is going to be. We have these 6 major conglomerates, GE, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. But the reach of these 6 media companies goes far beyond what you consider traditional media or news outlets. You know, just look at the bikes owned by iHeartRadio. And there's a lot of tax evasion going on, and there's a lot of rules that don't apply to these businesses when you own everything. And so that is where the problem lies with where we're getting our news. And it's hard to say that right now because news is so important. I think that it's important to think critically about media and where our news comes from, but at the same time, to acknowledge the validity in journalism, and that just because it might come out of one of these bigger conglomerates doesn't mean it's necessarily fake. We have a lot of unrest in our country with the news that's coming out of these conglomerates right now, but that doesn't mean that everything else on the internet is real, right? So we have a lot of conspiracy and a lot of disinformation coming from the internet, and so it begs a lot of question for more regulation, I think, on both ends, both breaking up some of these huge media conglomerates, and then also how do we regulate what information is true or not on the internet. And I don't know if I have an answer to that, but it's definitely startling. And I think where we start is with education and teaching people to think critically and to know that their information is coming from these 6 major companies and where their interests lie, etc.